Hello, and welcome to Chatham's special town meeting preview show. Our special town meeting is this Saturday, October 23rd at 9:30 a.m. at Veterans Field. It is an outdoor venue, so please plan accordingly. A weather date is scheduled for Sunday, October 24th at 1 p.m., same location. Warrants are available on the town website, chatham-ma.gov, or if you visit any town building, we will have warrants available for you. So to start it off, we're going to look at Article 1 of 3 articles on the town meeting warrant. And we'll start with Alex Alela, who's our finance director, to talk about Article 1 prior year bills. Alex?
Thank you, Jill. Yes, this year we have for the special town meeting total prior year bills, which total $11,066.53. These were bills or invoices that were received after the close of the fiscal year. So by Mass General Law, they require a town meeting vote. For a special town meeting, these require a 9/10 vote for approval of these bills. The funding source are available funds, either free cash or another available source, so there will be no impact to the tax rate. Again, $11,066.53 to pay for these prior year bills as listed under Article 1 of the special town meeting warrant.
Great, thank you, Alex. All right, moving on to our drinking water system, we have 2 articles. And so we'll start with Article 2, and that's water capital for wells 10 and 11. With us today, we have Dr. Bob Duncanson, our Director of Health and Natural Resources. Dr. Bob?
Thanks, Jill, and thanks town meeting members for attending. We have 2 articles today, both of which are related directly to the PFAS contamination that was detected earlier this year in a number of our drinking water wells. But first, let me reiterate that the town drinking water supply is safe. The town has taken all necessary actions to ensure that the water supply is safe, including turning off 2 of our drinking water wells as soon as the PFAS was detected. And we've been working with Mass DEP and other agencies since then to address this issue. So what is PFAS? PFAS is a class of compounds that are now becoming known as forever chemicals because they don't break down in the natural environment. So once those contaminants are present in groundwater, and they're present in a number of compounds that people use in their everyday lives, from things like non-stick cookware to non-stained carpeting or couches or things like that, to firefighting foam, which has been one of the primary causes of PFAS contamination around the country and in fact around the world. We don't know yet specifically where the PFAS originated in the 2 wells where it's been detected, but we're moving forward to review that and study that and try to determine where it comes from. So the first article that we want to talk about today, Article 2, is to bring wells 10 and 11 to completion. Now, you may not be familiar with wells 10 and 11 because frankly, they don't exist yet. Back in the early 2000s, the town did a town-wide study looking at where the town of Chatham could site future water supply wells, recognizing that we needed more capacity for our growing population. That study was done. It was a comprehensive study, and out of that, the area of wells 10 and 11, which are located in the northwest corner of Chatham near Mill Pond, was determined to be the most appropriate site. So at the time, well casings, which is the pipe basically that encompasses the wells, the casings were put in and the screens were put in, which is what allowed the water to get into the well casing. And design of the water treatment plant that was necessary, or the well house, the well pump house, was about 95% complete. Unfortunately, at the time, some low levels of MTBE, which was a gasoline additive that was very common in the 80s and 90s, was detected. So as a result, further work on those wells was halted. But now with the detection of the PFAS in wells 5 and 8, the town has made the decision to move ahead with completing wells 10 and 11. Through the intervening years, those wells have been sampled for MTBE and none has been detected because unlike PFAS, MTBE naturally degrades over time, as well as groundwater moves at about a foot per day, and that any contaminant has moved beyond the capture zone for wells 10 and 11. So Article 2 seeks $4.5 million for completion of wells 10 and 11, which will include the installation of the various pumps into the existing well casings, the construction of a well house to house the treatment facilities for pH, as well as disinfection, which is common at all our wells, so that the water that we pump out of wells 10 and 11 meets the same quality of all our wells throughout Chatham. And we expect that it's going to take about 2 years to complete wells 10 and 11. And so wells 10 and 11 would be online by summer of 2023. And so that again is Article 2, $4.5 million to complete the construction of wells 10 and 11 to provide additional capacity to our municipal water supply.
Thank you, Dr. Bob. So let's have Alex give us the 101 on the finances for Article 2. Alex?
Thank you, Jill. Yes, Article 2 is a borrowing authorization article, so this requires a 2/3 vote of town meeting. There will be no ballot question associated with this borrowing because the funds for the borrowing will come from the Water Department, water revenue, water surplus. We don't expect either approval of Article 2 and Article 3 to affect the water rates, as there's sufficient revenues within the Water Department to pay for this borrowing without negative impact on those water rates. Further to that, we will look for any grant funding that's available for this, such as the American Rescue Plan Act or ARPA funds, because these are eligible items for those funds, use of those funds. And also we'll look to fund these through the Clean Water Trust at a 2% interest rate. So again, no impact on water rates and no impact to the tax rate because this is through the Water Department funds.
Thank you, Alex. So this article requires a 2/3 vote at town meeting, and I'm happy to report the Select Board and the Finance Committee both voted unanimously in support of this article. All right, moving on to the next and last article of the special town meeting. Again, it's Saturday, October 23rd, 9:30 a.m. at Veterans Field outdoors. So let's go to Article 3, and that's Water Capital, the design of a new treatment facility to address PFAS and temporary treatment mitigation at Training Well Fields 5 and 8. Dr. Bob?
Thank you, Joe. So Article 3 is a direct result of the PFAS contamination that was detected last spring in well number 5 and then subsequently in well number 8. Wells 5 and 8 are geographically right next to each other. They are in the same well field off of Training Field Road. And as a result, they're both being impacted by the same level of contaminant. The wells are at different depths, so we actually detected it in the shallower well, which is well number 5 first, but it has subsequently been detected in well number 8 as well. As indicated in the explanation for Article 2, PFAS is a widespread contaminant that is showing up in drinking water, frankly, not only across Massachusetts, but across the country as well as around the world. The reason for the recent notice of these contaminants in these wells is last October, in October of 2020, the Massachusetts DEP set forth a new regulation for what's known as PFAS 6, which is the 6 most common types of the larger class of PFAS chemicals. That new standard took effect last October. It is significantly tighter or stricter than the current information at the federal level. There is no current standard for PFAS at the federal level under the Federal Safe Drinking Water Act. The United States Environmental Protection Agency does have a public health recommendation at 70 parts per trillion. The Massachusetts standard, which went into effect in October, is 20 parts per trillion, so about 3 times lower than the federal health advisory. So as a result, as when Mass DEP passed that new regulation in October, they set forth a time frame for towns with varying size water systems to test for PFAS. Chatham did those tests starting in April of 2021 and unfortunately detected PFAS in well number 5. Subsequent testing that was done detected further results that indicated PFAS and also indicated PFAS at higher levels. So levels above the state standard. As soon as we were notified of that, we immediately took well number 5 offline to prevent that contaminant from getting into this town's drinking water system. And then through subsequent testing over the course of the summer and early fall, we also detected the levels in well number 8 and above. Those were slightly above the state standard, but out of an abundance of caution, the town went ahead and took well number 8 offline as well. So in order to bring those wells back online and continue to use them as part of the town's public drinking water supply, especially in current conditions where we're just coming out of a long-term drought condition on the Cape, groundwater levels continue to be extremely low compared to where they would normally be this time of year. And unless we get a significant rainy or snowy winter, we could be looking at drought conditions again next summer. So the town wants to do what's necessary to bring wells 5 and 8 back online as quickly as possible. Now, the town was already looking at doing a water treatment plant for wells 5 and 8 due to high iron and manganese levels. Those are 2 naturally occurring compounds that result from the fact that although Cape is a sandbar, we do sit on top of bedrock, and over time those natural minerals leach into the water, which then we pump up. And so we were in the process of starting to design a treatment facility to remove iron and manganese, similar to the one the town constructed several years ago in the town forest to treat the water coming out of wells 6, 7, and 9, which also had a high iron and manganese levels. Once we found the PFAS in those wells, we also added PFAS removal to that water treatment plant. Now, it's important to note that in order to effectively and efficiently remove the PFAS, we also have to remove the iron and manganese, or else the granulated activated carbon filters, or GAC filters, that we use for the removal of the PFAS get clogged up too quickly and have to be replaced and replenished on a more frequent basis than would otherwise be necessary. So the $1.4 million requested in Article 3 is to finance the design and engineering for a new water treatment plant to serve wells 5 and 8 for removal of iron, manganese, as well as PFAS. So very similar to the treatment plant we just recently constructed. In addition, this article also seeks funding to immediately implement PFAS removal out of wells 5 and 8, recognizing that it's probably going to take 3 years to design and construct the water treatment facility as a whole. In the meantime, what we want to do is bring in granular activated carbon vessels, so large metal vessels holding this granular activated carbon that we can immediately set up and start to remove the PFAS to enable us to get wells 5 and 8 back online, hopefully before next summer. The target is in April of 2022, recognizing that it takes about 6 months lead time to get those vessels from the manufacturers because they're basically not a stock item necessarily. And with all the delays that I'm sure everybody has been reading about in the supply chain due to COVID, it's roughly taking 6 months now to get those vessels delivered. So the intent is to take a portion of this money, around $650,000, procure those vessels, get them connected up to wells 5 and 8 prior to next summer so that we can continue to wells 5 and 8 while we go ahead and finish the design, engineering, permitting, and then construction of the larger wastewater treatment plant, for which a future article would be brought back to you to seek construction funding. So that is the premise of article number 3, $1.4 million for both emergency and long-term work on wells 5 and 8 due to the PFAS contamination.
Thank you, Dr. Bob. Now let's hear from Finance Director Alex Halila about Article 3's financing. Alex?
Thank you, Jill. Yes, similar to Article 2, Article 3 is a borrowing authorization for the $1.4 million. And again, will be paid through the Water Department water rates, water surplus. Also, part of this for the temporary solution is there's a grant available through the Mass DEP for up to $150,000, which the town will seek to offset the amount of borrowing. And again, this is also eligible for those American Rescue Plan Act or the ARPA funds for the treatment of PFAS. So again, the town will always seek the grant funding prior to borrowing authorization and going out for debt service. But again, no impact on the tax rate or on the water rates for the $1.4 million authorization, which has been mentioned before, requires a 2/3 majority vote at town meeting for the approval. And this was also recommended by the Select Board by a 5-0 vote in favor, as well as the Finance Committee unanimously approving this article. Back to you, Jill.
Thank you, Alex. So we just went through Articles 1, 2, and 3 for the special town meeting on Saturday, October 23rd at 9:30 a.m. at Veterans Field outdoors. We had unanimous approval by both the Select Board and the Finance Committee. And information is available on the town's website specifically for the warrant under Town Meeting Central and other information related to PFAS. So thank you for watching and look forward to seeing you on Saturday. Thank you.